Well, hi everybody, and welcome to this training on how to improve your venue's organic search rankings on Google. My name's Toby McKeldin. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Indigo Media Group. And before we dive into the presentation and training, just a couple of words on the big picture. I think a lot has changed in venue marketing and search marketing over the last 5 years. Today, the vast majority of your potential customers will begin searching for their perfect venue for their next corporate event or social event on Google. So if you're not ranking for your venue's key search terms on that first page of Google search results, if you're not appearing in those first few positions, it's kind of unlikely you're going to be found or even taken into consideration. So improving your venue's organic search results is fundamentally important if you want to drive new leads, inquiries, and ultimately bookings and sales. So this training's going to give you and your marketing team the actionable tools and tactics you need to implement to improve your venue's search ranking so you can get found by more potential customers. Now, I understand if you might be thinking, yes, but I've tried SEO before and it didn't work. Or perhaps you're concerned competition is so fierce in your particular niche or geography that it's almost impossible to rank on the first page for your keywords. Well, or perhaps you're worried that maybe you're just not a technical person and won't get this stuff. I totally understand. I just want to assure you that I'm going to cover off each of those concerns and that you will get a lot of value in sticking with me for the training. So as I go through these tools and techniques, I'd ask you to really be thinking about how they can apply to you and your particular hotel, your venue, your club, your resort, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of value. But before we dive in, just a little bit of background on me. So I have a background in marketing and technology here in Australia, UK and US. I co-founded Indigo Media Group in 2002. We're the creators of a website called realweddings.com.au. It's one of the largest digital marketing platforms for venues in Australia who are looking to book more weddings. And we're working with, we're now delivering digital marketing services to over 200 of Australia's leading venues and some across Asia Pacific. In parallel to that, I've also delivered a lot of sales and marketing consulting and training to major corporates, including Google, Bain, ANZ, Deloitte, and many others. So to give you a sense of the agenda for the training today, this is essentially a visual representation of the process that we're going to go through. We call it intent-based search optimization. And it begins with understanding what is your potential customer looking for. Well, the first part is understanding what is the intent that your potential customer has and what is the context. Why are they searching for it? Which will help us develop our keywords and our long tail keywords. We'll then touch on how do we create digital assets that are going to be then found when our searchers or our potential customers look and use those keywords. We'll talk about where those assets should live, what is the best channel for them, how then should we optimize those assets in order to be found. And then once we are found by our potential customers, how do we basically create the next step in the customer journey? How do we upsell? How do we cross-sell and generate more revenue to existing clients and customers? So that's the journey we're going to go through. And again, just on this idea of context and how the world has changed a little bit. In the old days of marketing, it was probably a little simpler. We, for example, used to publish a leading wedding magazine called Real Weddings. We had that for 15 years. It won multiple awards. And about 5 years ago, we began to sort of notice that the market was changing dramatically. In the old days, it was pretty simple. If you wanted to reach a large audience of newly engaged brides and grooms, you would put in an ad in a print magazine like ours, and you would reach a large percentage of the audience. But around 2015, we, I think, along with the rest of the print industry, noticed a massive drop-off in newsstand sales. Newly engaged couples were no longer willing to pay $15 for a magazine at the newsstand to get ideas and inspiration for their wedding, when they could really get an unlimited amount of wedding content for free online through social media, blogs, etc. So we pivoted, we ceased publishing Real Weddings, and we put all our resources into creating realweddings.com.au, which is now one of the largest dedicated digital marketing platform for venues who are looking to increase their wedding bookings. Now we're not going to be talking. We're not going. That's the last I'll mention real weddings. I just wanted to put it in terms of context that the world has moved from this kind of simple print environment that we used to have to a much more complicated digital environment. And to really underscore that point, this slide is a visual representation of all of the marketing technology software companies that are out there at the moment. In fact, this slide's a few years old. This has even grown since this was put out. And it's interesting because I remember when social media first really came onto the scene, a lot of our customers and clients were saying, yeah, well, it's easy now. You know, we've got Facebook, we can do our marketing ourselves, it's free, etc. And I think initially in the early days of digital marketing, there was a sense that it was simple, it was free, it was easy, but it's become far, far more complex. You know, social media is now, all the major platforms are basically pay to play, I should say. If you want to reach a large percentage of your followers, you need to boost your posts and pay for them. And it's become, the market overall has just become highly fragmented and much more competitive. So in terms of competition, you know, if you're wanting to organically rank for some of the major keywords, so, you know, just as an example here, you know, wedding venue Sydney, if you're a venue in Sydney and you're looking to generate more wedding bookings, you know, one of the major keywords, of course, is wedding venue Sydney. But in order to rank number one or high on page one for that term, you're really going to be competing against the large directory websites like Real Weddings and some of the others, because we have thousands of pages of content on these websites which has been optimized for those major keywords. So Google these days ranks on the really highly values content. So it's kind of challenging to rank for those major keywords. And I'm going to talk about how you as a venue can overcome that challenge as we go through this training. To give you an indication though, you know, we now have nearly 7,000 search terms, venue-related search terms that are ranking in the top 10 positions of Google. So it's become very, very competitive. And search marketing, I think, has evolved more than almost any other marketing discipline. And there's been a lot of change, as I mentioned. So our agenda as we get into the training today, I'm going to provide the introduction to venue SEO, and we'll talk about the new rules of search marketing. We'll dive into that first section of that visual chart I showed you a moment ago around intent, context, and assets, and really get a good understanding of how our customers are searching for us and what you need to do in order for your venue to be found. Then we'll look at how do we optimize our web pages and our digital assets to generate new leads and venue bookings. We'll touch on the technical side a little bit. We won't spend a lot of time on this, but you know, search increasingly is a technical enterprise. So I'll touch on that and explain what you should do. And I'll also provide an offer at the end for a free SEO audit. So this is something we can help you with to provide you with the exact things you need to do in order to begin ranking higher at no obligation and no charge. And I'll talk more in depth at the end of the presentation around that. So some of the new rules. One of the first rules of search today is that search is increasingly mobile. You know, throughout the course that we're going through today, we'll return to this idea that we all now have this PC in our pockets, and we'll use the search capability of our mobile phones, our iPhone, our Android phones constantly, particularly for research. And your marketers need to understand that the way we build our search marketing campaigns and our websites has to be focused on mobile. And as an example, over 60% of our search traffic on realweddings.com.au is mobile. Search today is also increasingly technical and structural. So we'll talk a lot about how Google has evolved and how search engines have evolved and how it's forced us to think about search marketing in a much more structural way. And we'll touch on things like user experience optimization, I should say, and something I call RXO, which is robot experience optimization. And a lot of that has to do with the way we structure information and the way we structure the marketing assets that we deliver to our searchers. And search has become very technical. It's always been, digital marketing has always been somewhat of a technical field, but because the structure of your website has become so critical, in the past there were a lot of hacks and loopholes that you're able to use to, I guess, game Google, but these days it's harder and harder to do that. So it's very much about structural and technical improvements and optimization that you need to make. Also today, search has become white hat. I just touched on the idea that historically there were what has been called black hat techniques or loopholes or hacks that you could use for Google to help you rank higher. We're not going to touch on those black hat techniques. Increasingly, they don't work anyway, but we are going to focus on white hat because today, the best web page usually wins. So the war is kind of over between black hat and white hat. Google won the war. Its algorithm updates in 2010, Caffeine, Panda in 2011, Penguin in 2012, and Hummingbird in 2013 have really dropped the nuclear bomb on any kind of black hat techniques. So some people may still be able to get by and gain some of those rankings, but it doesn't work in the long term. Google is always going to figure out how to defeat spammers and black hat SEO. So from both an ethical and a business standpoint, we're going to stay focused on white hat techniques, the things that really create long-term sustainable search marketing process and advantage at your venue. But, it's not all about Google. Search today is kind of everywhere it matters, in a sense. It's anywhere. It's really not constrained to just Google, Bing, or Yahoo. We're talking about any place there's a large group of people that are gathered together using a search function is what we call the search engine today. So we will be talking about Google, but we also need to be thinking about Google Maps, iTunes, Pinterest, Amazon, YouTube, Yelp and the Australian equivalents, TripAdvisor, any place large groups of people are gathering together and using search functionality is really what a search engine is today. So we will touch on Google though predominantly. And to put this in context, there are really three players in search marketing when you think about it. We want to think about what motivates these three players. And the first player in this is the searcher. So what does the searcher want? The searcher is looking for relevant results. They're looking to find anything that they're actually searching for, and they want it immediately. They want it right now. Google, on the other hand, is looking for revenue. What motivates Google and the other search engines is revenue. So they want to be providing relevant and popular search results that keep searchers on their web properties so they can generate more revenue. And before we dive into what the marketer is motivated, just to really kind of emphasize this point about Google, let's take a look at the anatomy of this page. So those of you who may be new to search marketing can really see how Google makes money. So at the top and the right, we've got ads. So highlighted in red there, those are ads. That's where Google makes money. I've typed in here, by the way, just a generic kind of search around order flowers. So Google's brought back a series of ads at the top and down the side. And then in the blue box here, we have the organic search results. So this is where people are ranking out of merit based on how popular or relevant their particular website is. And so the rest of the space is purchase. So when we go back to the motivation of the search robot wants more clicks on the paid areas, which are going to drive ad revenue. And the only way for them to do that is to serve relevant, popular results to the searcher and keep them on properties they own. So then we go back to thinking about what does the marketer want? What's the business owner want? Well, they want rankings in search engines. They want to get found. They want to have a higher position on those organic search rankings. They want more traffic and impressions to their websites. But ultimately, they want that because they want more leads and sales. So in the end, two of the three players in the search game are really motivated by sales and revenue. That's the only person who's not really is the searcher. So as you go through this workshop, you'll notice is we're very focused on what the searcher wants and what the search engine wants, because if we can figure that out, then we're going to really win at search marketing. So the next step, we're going to focus on something that's really critical in this whole process. And that's this idea of search queries being central to search marketing. So when we type in a keyword phrase, the search engine returns relevant, popular results. We click on them, and then we're off to the races. And so the first part of that is beginning with search queries. And there are two critical categories of search queries that we want to target. The first is what we call discoverable. So these are target search queries that make you as a business discoverable. And then the second category are those search queries that make you available. So let me explain those definitions and then why they're important. So firstly, discoverable is being found when your searcher is not looking specifically for you. So we call these non-branded queries. I'll give you an example in a moment. The second category are what we call actionable. So what that is search queries where they are looking specifically for you. And that we refer to those as branded queries. So to sort of give you an example, here's Zest waterfront venues. Somebody's firstly typed in to the search box here, Sydney wedding venues. And we find that Zest waterfront venues are discoverable for the search term Sydney wedding venues. Okay, so it's a non-branded search query. But then the searcher types Zest, now that they found or discovered Zest waterfront venues, they type Zest waterfront venues into the search function, and we discover that Zest waterfront venues are available also for those branded search queries. So the question becomes, is your venue discoverable and available on the right channels? And this is more than just about getting traffic. We need to also then optimize that traffic through having the right assets that are going to help us be found. But just to dig a little further into intent and context. So what is the prospect searching for and why are they searching for it? So what do we talk about when we say intent? So this is, look at this gentleman here. I want to find a waterfront venue in Melbourne to hold my 30th birthday party. But the first part of that is in the highlighted area there, his intent. He wants to find a waterfront venue in Melbourne. The context is the second part. He wants to hold, or in other words, it's the why. He wants to hold his 30th birthday party. So the intent, just going back, is to find a waterfront venue, and the context is to hold his 30th birthday party. Another example, this lady, the intent here, she wants to find a romantic restaurant in Sydney, and then the context is in order to celebrate her 20th wedding anniversary. So that you can see the two components here, and intent and context then translate into search queries. So these are literally the words that people are typing into the Google search function. So find a waterfront venue, and then you'll see that Google automatically recommends a venue for an event, romantic restaurants in Sydney, etc. This is the search queries that we're looking to rank for. And then it's about creating digital assets that meet that context and intent. So to compete for a search query, all you need is a digital asset that a prospect can find. And that, such as, this can be a blog post, it can be a YouTube video, it might be a Pinterest pin, it could be an online brochure, it could be your web page. And what's interesting about the internet is that it's really freed us from the traditional limitations of physical space. If you think in the old days, Blockbuster Video, it only had a certain amount of shelf space on its video. Any retail store, for that matter, has only a certain amount of shelf space in which it can hold its products. But the internet is unlimited in the amount of space and the amount of digital assets then we can create to rank for the key search terms we're looking for. Okay, so we're going to dig into how we actually do that in a moment. But another core concept I just want to touch on is this idea of the long tail of search. So thinking, let's just say you are a waterfront venue. Which queries would you want to target on Google? If we go back to the idea of intent and context, all 5 of these people want to do the same thing. They all have the same intent, which is they want to find a waterfront venue. But they have separate contexts, which is really the why they're looking to find a waterfront venue in Sydney. So lady here wants to find one to sell her anniversary. Gentleman underneath wants to find a waterfront venue to celebrate his 40th birthday. Another lady here wants to find a waterfront venue for her wedding, and so on. So the context can change. The intent is the same, but we want to be able to create digital assets that help us be found for all the variations of that intent and context. And to sort of underscore this, one way of thinking about it, you know, the reality is that people will search for waterfront venue in Sydney for different reasons and in different volumes. So, this is not meant to be an accurate representation or true numbers, but it's just visualizing the idea here is that, there may be a larger number of people who are searching for waterfront venue in Sydney for their wedding. So the top line there. Then you may have slightly fewer people looking for their anniversary. Then you might have fewer people for their engagement, and then less still for the 30th and 40th birthday parties. But ultimately you can target all of them. Why not target all of those different categories? You have no limitations on physical space. So it's ultimately much easier to rank for the lower volume keywords, and it's where it's lower competition and higher conversion. So to explain this in a bit more depth, when you think of the people who are searching for keywords, it's called the search demand curve. And the way this works is that on the left-hand side, you've got the top 100 keywords in the world. They're getting searched millions of times around the world. And as you progressively move further to the right, so we've got what we call on the left, the fat head. This is the really popular keywords around the world. And then we move into the chunky middle, and then what we call the long tail, which is much lower volume on the far right-hand side here. And what we're going to do is combining the information we're learning around the long tail with the idea there's no limitations on physical space. That's going to inform the way that we approach search marketing. And another way of visualizing this, the top 100 keywords on average are searched in aggregate far less than the volume of search terms that you find in the long tail. So the vast majority of search traffic that's going on online is in the long tail, on that far right of that distribution of that search curve. So in other words, these terms are making up 80% of all traffic that is getting searched for online. They're searched very, very infrequently, but they make up, in aggregate, the majority of search marketing queries that are going on. So long tail searches are low volume, but they do have redeeming qualities. And you look at this arrow here, we're saying that as you move further to the right, there is less competition for those keywords and also very often higher conversion. So what we want to be doing, therefore, is understanding intent and context of our potential of our customers that's creating their search queries, and then designing and developing digital assets that meet that intent and context, particularly in the long tail. Because how big, people say, well, how much is actually going on in that long tail of search? What's fascinating is that 1 in 5 queries on Google have never been typed into the search engine before. I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing, but these are the accurate stats that come from Google. So, that is an enormous chunk of search traffic that all of us need to understand how to leverage. So what you want to be doing, again, is targeting intent and context, and you want to build assets across that entire demand curve, particularly concentrating on the long tail, because again, this is where there's low competition, and because typically people using these search terms have high intent to buy. Okay, so how do we figure this out though? How do we know what are the search queries and that our potential customers are using? Well, first we want to start with intent-based keyword research. So let's look at this venue. They're looking at Sydney Harbourfront. They're looking for more customers. The first thing to think about too, by the way, again, just slightly, it's taking a step back in terms of context. There is a common sequence that must be followed if you're going to get more customers for your venue. So in the upper left here, the first part of that sequence is for your potential customers to become aware that you even exist. So this is, you might be using online advertising, social media, content marketing, organic search, which is what we're talking about today, public relations, etc. Anything that's going to get your name and brand out there. Perhaps listings in the major directories like realweddings.com.au. Then the next step, once we've got them aware that we exist, is to have them become subscribers. So we can do that through lead magnets, maybe online brochures, downloads of your wedding kit if you're looking at weddings, or event packs. We could subscribe them to your email newsletter, get followers on social media channels. Maybe you run a webinar on how to plan your perfect wedding, etc. Then once they've subscribed, we want them to convert. So we want to, even if it's a low value conversion, maybe bringing them in for a site visit, having them in for drinks or for lunch, making a small purchase initially, but then over time, expanding that and upselling and cross-selling, booking the actual event. And then ideally, we want them to become promoters. So as we sell more to them, let's say we have someone come along and have their wedding at our venue. Over time, we want them to come back for all their key anniversaries. We want them to recommend us to their friends and their family. So it's a consistent and continual cycle that we want to get people engaged in. But if we look at the first three steps, so let's just take a step back and look at the first three steps around awareness, subscribe, and convert. And let's look at how search plays a part and how intent plays a part at each one of those stages. So if we look back to the lady here who's looking to find a waterfront venue in Sydney for her wedding. Where is she in terms of her stage here? She's just becoming aware. She's not using any kind of branded search query. She's just doing some initial research around where are the best options for her wedding. However, let's perhaps look at another example. And now she's got to the point where she's saying, I want reviews of Harbourside Hotel because I'm thinking of holding my wedding there. So she now is moving much more to the conversion stage. So she's moved down the funnel and she's getting ready to buy. So, these are all great keywords, right? And these are intent and content-based keywords that you want to be optimizing your pages for. So on your website, your blog, etc. So if you can find the intent and context, you will find your keywords. So a few ways and a few recommendations for how you should go about finding your keywords and research. The first is pretty simple, and that is just talking to all of your customer-facing staff. So sales team, service team, whoever is working, whether it's on the corporate or social event side, who's ever talking to your customers, they probably intuitively know why people are choosing you and your venue. They probably understand the intent and context for which people approach your venue. So what are those common reasons? And work backwards from there. Common sense. If I was a B&B, for example, I can infer that one of the reasons people would want to book a B&B is for their anniversary. A lot of this just comes from common sense. So sitting down and thinking about all the reasons why someone might want to come to a B&B. The other step is what we call customer avatar. And this is a very important and powerful process. And this is about completing a customer avatar and intent-based avatar worksheet. And I'll touch on that in a sec, which will generate a lot of the most lucrative intent and context keywords for you. And then finally, keyword research tools. Things, the Google's free keyword tool is a great one. There are a lot around. And they can be very helpful, but don't discount the first two, which is your salespeople and common sense. So thinking about customer avatars for a sec, I just touched that this is a very powerful process. We have a worksheet here which will help guide you through really getting a deep understanding of your individual customers, because the customers that, for example, are looking for a harbourfront wedding venue may be very different from the type of customer who's looking for a country venue for their next event, or who's looking for a destination wedding or event. So I keep touching on weddings, but it applies for corporates as well. So we want to get a really deep understanding of what are the challenges and pain points, what are their objections they may have, what's their role in the purchasing decision, how are they getting information, where do they get their news, what are their goals and values. So if you'd like to get a hold of that worksheet and instructions on how to use it, please just send us a quick email to tools@Indigo Media Group, and we'd be very happy to send you those worksheets. Now, when you think about keyword research tools like the Google research tool, they can be very, very helpful. However, just a little caveat, and that is that they are not often sensitive enough to be able to find the long tail keywords that may be the most powerful for you. So the tools are simply, they just don't pick up very often the smaller, more niche keywords that might be absolutely perfect for your venue, and something that you really want to concentrate on or build resources around or digital assets around. But like the Google keyword research tool is just sometimes literally not sensitive enough to pick up on any of that sort of much lower search demand for that keyword. So don't discount the common sense and talking to your salespeople and having a little workshop around, brainstorming what are the best intent and context and keywords for your venue. But again, if you'd like some more information on those tools, please just email us at tools@indigomediagroup.com.au. Now, just I guess before we move on to the next section, another suggestion around this. There are some common, what we call keyword modifiers, common keyword modifiers that you can use around your core keywords that can help you to really understand the longer tail. So some examples could be at the top of the funnel, the word learn plus the keyword plus the word information, plus news, plus ideas, plus tips, plus inspiration. So, somebody's looking for their venue. It could be Melbourne event venue inspiration, or Melbourne event venue ideas or tips. So you can just, or examples, you can add these and wrap them around your core keywords to begin fleshing out and building out your long tail keywords. So it looks a bit like this, if from Sydney wedding venues to Sydney wedding venue inspiration. So just the core keyword plus the word inspiration on the back. Now, if we think about keyword modifiers we can use at the bottom of the funnel, could be things like buy plus the keyword, purchase, book, a keyword plus pricing, compare the keyword, reviews of, order, etc. So it looks a bit like, from Sydney wedding venues to Sydney wedding venue reviews, that should be, or from Sydney wedding venues to Sydney wedding venue pricing. So it just a couple of modifiers you can immediately add to your core keywords to building out long ones. So, or long tail ones. Which would you prefer to rank for ultimately? Sydney wedding, this generic kind of Sydney wedding venues, or book Sydney wedding venues? Or the generic Sydney wedding venues to Sydney wedding venue pricing. Clearly, those sort of search terms they're much further down the funnel. They're much more ready to buy and probably less competitive and easier to rank for. So now that we've touched on intent and context and building your assets based on that intent context, let's look at optimization. And then, look, we could dive into a whole range of different optimization techniques for all the search engines. We're just going to touch on a few here. We don't have time to go through all of them, but let's start with web page, because everybody has web pages that they're looking to rank on Google. So let's think about, so there are 6 key areas you want to optimize for your web page: title tag, meta description, the heading and title, URL, body copy, and the image alt. And I'm going to give you an example of how this looks. So we're all familiar with Xero probably. It's an accounting software. They're very good at SEO, so I'm just going to use them as a generic example. So this is their title tag and meta description. And the first thing you want to be looking at in terms of optimizing web page is getting your keywords that you're looking to optimize for into the title tag. So the title tag is really the most critical SEO element on any web page. And you can see here from the code that I pulled up from the back end of Xero's web page that their keyword is accounting software and online bookkeeping. And AMP there is just a code for the and sign. And then their brand is right there. And so pretty simple. You can see the title tag polls into Google search as the main heading. So, it should read well. It should contain the keyword. And you can see here, Xero is QuickBooks alternative. Use Xero accounting to manage invoicing. So Google will pull this meta description into the search results as well as the description. They shuffle things around sometimes. They'll shuffle around the title tag. They'll shuffle around your meta description. But optimizing these 2 pieces is really the most critical parts to optimizing when it comes to search engine results pages. And when now you have other things on the page you want to optimize, like the heading. So you can see here, fast financial reporting, features financial reporting, and the URL. So surprisingly, the URL has quite a lot to do with SEO. It's certainly not as big a factor as the title tag, but you do want to have that keyword in your URL there. And I like to keep nice, clean URLs. So I like to see how this one's set up, which is xero.com, US, this is the US site, accounting, software, financial reporting. So the URL should contain the keyword, and the keyword should also be in the body copy. And so as you can see here, as we read in the body copy, we've got the word repeats in here. And we want to make sure we got the alt image text right. So this is an image on the page. When you upload the image, through the CMS, or you put an image on a page, you want to use keywords that make sense for that image. Okay, so just to review, it's not terribly difficult to begin improving the SEO value of your web pages. There are 6 areas to think about. Okay, now when we think about blog posts, so most of us will have some form of blog that we're running, and it's basically to optimize your blog posts. It's all the same areas as web pages, plus 2 additional ones, which are social sharing and freshness. So I'm going to touch on what each of these are. Just using an example here from our partners, Digital Marketer. Digital Marketer have got a post here on blog post ideas. So one of the ideas, so you'll see the URL, they've got the headline, blog post title tag, etc. And you'll see at the bottom, they have their social sharing buttons. So you really want to put social sharing buttons on your blog content, because the more shares and engagement you get, the higher Google will rank. And if rank that page or that blog post. And if you want immediate traction on social media, we would recommend boosting your posts with social media ads. Because again, it gets the word out there quickly, people begin to see it, engage with it, and then Google will begin to rank it more highly. Now, this term of freshness, why is this important? Well, the internet is aging all the time. You think, there are millions of blog posts that are getting published every single day. And if you go back to Google's motivation, they want revenue. So they need to search or serve relevant results to the searcher and popular results to the searcher, so that the searchers stay on properties they own, so they make more revenue. And to do that, you think about all of the millions of blog posts that are getting and web pages that are getting created every day. Google has had to start considering freshness to make sure that the results they're publishing and serving are as relevant as possible. So to explain, Google uses the query deserves freshness QDF algorithm for queries like upcoming events in Melbourne. So you can imagine why Google would use a freshness algorithm for that. They're looking for what is the freshest page for upcoming events in Melbourne. Let's think about Tiger Woods Masters. Let's say the Masters golf is on. Somebody types in Tiger Woods Masters during the Masters. What they're going to begin, they will immediately apply the QDF algorithm. And they're going to show Tiger Woods' score. They're going to show video of Tiger Woods at the Masters. So whatever is the freshest content wins. Around the time Steve Jobs passed away, if somebody had typed in Steve Jobs, you'd be getting a lot of news around the impact on Apple, and they would give you the most relevant, immediate, freshest content. AFL scores, of course. While the AFL season is on, the QDF algorithm will be delivering the most relevant content, so it could be actual scores in real time. So, as a result, Google is favoring freshness. So what does that mean for you and your content? It just means, one of the simple things you can do is updating your blog posts. So this is something Digital Marketer does, our partner. This is their ultimate list of blog post ideas, and you can see they've got here 2nd edition. So the idea is that for any post that you do, you want to go in, freshen them up, and republish them. And you can see this is, Digital Marketer's results here for that last one I just showed you. They get an immediate bump in their traffic. So how do you do that? How should you go about updating your blog post? Well, you want to find the top performer. You want to have a look in your Google Analytics and work out which blog posts are performing really well. Then you go through and perform some on-page SEO, and then update the post and re-energize it using social media advertising. So we can help you with this, but just to give you some guidance, you go into channels, you look for landing pages on organic search only, and you find your highest performing blog posts, and then you want to go through and perform some on-page SEO. So just confirm the title tag, the heading and title and the URL are correct. meta description, etc., all the ones we went through before. But one thing, just a word of warning here, what we don't want to do is mess around if we're republishing and freshening up blog posts. We don't want to change the URL. That can have a very negative effect on your SEO. So just a word of caution there. But then, correct any inaccuracies. You want to add examples, screenshots, video, infographics, anything that's going to make it more, fresher and relevant, and then re-energize that post with some advertising. And the results are pretty immediate. You'll see Digital Marketer here went from, for ranking for the key search term best email subject lines, it was ranked number 6. Then they freshened it up, republished it, promoted it on social, and they went up to number 3. So that can have an immediate, almost immediate impact on your rankings. Alrighty, so let's move into the next part, which is around user optimization. We won't go into a huge amount of detail because this is pretty technical stuff, but the big picture here is that when we think about UXO and RXO, it's really a key part of search marketing today. So on the left, we've got the searcher who's trying to find the resource or the asset, and they have an intent and context. On the right, we've got the robot experience. We want to make sure that, and when I say robot, I mean the Google search robot. We want to make sure we eliminate any brick walls, any technical impediments that are putting up massive brick walls for our user, and the things that put up technical brick walls for the robot, so the robot can't find our content or our assets. And we also, so that these might be big brick walls, but they also might just be some speed bumps that are technical, that are getting in the way of the robots finding and ranking our site. So these are the speed bumps that if we remove them, we'll actually be throwing out a welcome mat for the user or the search engine. And we're going to touch on our free SEO audit in a minute, which is designed to help remove those roadblocks for you, or the speed humps. Before I do that, I just want to touch on the importance of having a good CMS or a content management system. And these are systems like WordPress or Shopify if you were in e-commerce. So this is where we go in and update and build our website and update our content. And the value in these CMSs is pretty significant in terms of making sure you rank well, because they will help you with the navigation, the speed, plugins like the Yoast plugin for SEO on WordPress, which improve functionality and search results. They come pre-built with well-optimized themes or skins, and they're just overall, they're built for good user experience and robot experience. So if you are thinking about changing your website, what I would recommend is that you look into having a really solid CMS that's going to make your life a whole lot easier. So as I touched on, we've covered a lot in the presentation. I realize it can all feel a bit overwhelming. What we'd love to do is offer you a free search/SEO audit, and it will really help you get started. We'll create a comprehensive set of technical recommendations on user optimization, including quick wins that you can implement to start really improving your venue's rankings for your key search terms. So if you'd like to take us up on that, please just send us an email to audit@Indigo Media Group. There is no charge, there's no obligation. We'll give you some great suggestions on what you can do to begin improving your rankings straight away. So with that, I'd love to thank you for your attention. I know we've touched on a lot here. If you'd like, either the tools or the audit, you can send it to those emails, or alternatively, just drop me a line, Toby@Indigo Media Group. We'd obviously love to work with you. So if you are ready to grow, let's go. Thanks for your attention and all the best.